Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, it's Jesse with Common Nerd, bringing you pop culture and all things underneath through a common sense lens. And you know, a lot of people out there really kind of became aware of like kind of the culture war that was going on around 2015, 2016, right? It coincided with a very particular election out there that broke a lot of people's brains. And it's one of them situations where I think really what it was is that it was just exposed to a lot of people. It became mainstream. A lot of people became talking about it very openly and publicly. They were no longer hiding behind the shadows. And I've been saying for a long time that this stuff has been going on for decades, right? If you go back and look at a lot of things, if you go back and watch a few shows with a new awakened eyes, you see a lot of this kind of stuff. I reference the CW a lot of the time, which was the Arrowverse, was something that was very popular. I absolutely loved it. I had a really good time, but as I saw the series go on, stuff that I really enjoyed out there, like even Legends of Tomorrow, one of the last spinoffs from that whole universe out there, I saw how things just got progressively turned into more melodrama and just got more ridiculous and ended up turning about like lesbian relationships. And at the time, I really didn't have a word for it, but I knew it just all ended up being really bad storytelling that I just didn't care about. Barry Allen got turned into nothing more than like a little soy boy who had to cry and whine, be built up by his wife every time he was going to save the day. And I just got tired of it, right? Well, now we know why all of that was, right? It was always very intentional to go after children's shows, to go after our cultural entertainment, to go after nerd spheres. And we've known from just the comic book history alone, these people that have been infested and infected, this cancer, this rot, this identity politics nonsense had been embedded into some of the highest sections of culture out there for literal decades, boys and girls. And well, it turns out one of the very popular kids shows of the 2010s going forward, boys and girls, was Steven Universe. And it turns out the showrunner has now finally admitted that it was LGBT propaganda right from the very get-go, and color us shocked there, like so many other woke creations that we have seen come to fruition over the last few decades. It was nothing more than a self-insert, and it was all about the relationship with her girlfriend at the time. Color us shocked there, boys and girls, because although I did miss this show, came out around 2011, which is literally when I was getting out of the Air Force, this thing became so popular, there was no way not to hear about it. This thing was extremely popular with your children out there, and it turns out it was nothing more than LGBTQ propaganda, and guess what? She even had to fight the studio heads because back then, even back in 2011, they understood this stuff should not be allowed in children's entertainment. And guess what? They forced it through anyway, because the first few seasons, when they left all that stuff out, had the show's popularity at such a height that the studio simply could not come put their foot down as much as they would like to. And now Rebecca Sugar, the showrunner and creator behind this show, flat out says that yes, that was her intent the entire time. As you can see over from the headline from geeksandgamers.com, because if you hadn't heard, that Park Place and them have now officially teamed up. Rebecca Sugar admits to secretly pushing LGBT themes in children's show Steven Universe against network objections. And this is back in the day when most parents weren't paying attention. You put your children in front of Cartoon Network or Disney, and you didn't expect any kind of propaganda, especially a bunch of adult themes about sexuality, to be heightened in your children's programming. Well, that's okay, because Rebecca Sugar's own personal issues and her self-insert matter more than children not being exposed to adult content and adult relationships. So we're going to check out this article from geeksandgamers.com and our dear sweet Marvin Montanaro. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share it with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing. We just crossed 2,300. We're sailing our way towards 24 on our journey to 100,000. I think we're sitting at like 2330, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below. Were you a fan of Steven Universe? Did your kids watch it? Did somebody else you know watch it? Did you see this kind of stuff going in at the time? Do you understand it? Have you gone back and watched it since then and see how obvious it really was, especially with a much more clearer eye? Or do you think this isn't really all that big a deal at all, and this relationship wasn't really a problem, and all of us pearl clutchers out there who are terrified for our children's innocence that are just being ridiculous and over the top? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below, because unlike other places on the internet, all opinions are welcome down there. And if you'd like to support the channel, check out the links. All right, from our dear sweet Marvin Montanaro over at geeksandgamers.com. Steven Universe may have been marketed as a whimsical show for kids, but according to its creator, Rebecca Sugar, much more was happening behind the scenes. In a recent TikTok post, Sugar revealed that she and her team deliberately inserted LGBT romantic and ideological material into Steven Universe, despite repeated pushback from Cartoon Network executives who warned it was not appropriate for children's programming. Yeah, you remember all those crazy old white men that used to be running studios that Hollywood just had to get rid of with the hashtag Me Too movement? Well, it was people like that were preventing them from trying to indoctrinate your children at, in some cases, the preschool level. Boy, I wonder why white and male is stale and pale out there in Hollywood, boys and girls. Sugar explained that she based the alien characters, Ruby and Sapphire, on her own relationship with Steven Universe's supervising director, Ian Jones-Quartey. The two characters who fused together to form Garnet were portrayed as lovers, something Sugar says she had to conceal from the network in the show's early years. Garnet was revealed as a main character in the show's first episode, and it wasn't revealed that she was actually the two romantically linked female characters fused into one being until the first season's finale, where she sings a song with lyrics, "I am made of love." Don't believe me. Don't believe the report from Marvin over at geeksandgamers.com. No, here's Sugar herself, boys and girls.
Joining Steven Universe, Garnet was my hill to die on. Garnet was based off my relationship with Ian. Ruby and Sapphire are us. We were running.
Literally, it was based on my relationship with Ian. It was a self-insert. This predominant character, right from the get-go, was nothing more than her own personal self-insert and her girlfriend's self-insert and their relationships. She was working out and expressing her own personal issues in your children's cartoon, boys and girls. Wow, where have we seen that before? It's almost like they use the same place every single time. I don't know, Kathleen Kennedy, Disney Star Wars, I Am Not Starfire in DC Comics. Wow, it's almost like they don't have any original ideas and they do the exact same thing over and over again. Self-inserts and having to work out their own personal issues inside of children's entertainment by their own right. Spider-Man, one more day, anybody?
The show together. We knew at that time, this was 2011, 2012, that we weren't going to be allowed to show Ruby and Sapphire in a relationship with each other.
Yeah, because it's kids' entertainment. Cartoon Network, as they talk about a little bit here later in the article, prime demographic was from 6-year-olds to 11. Kindergartners to what? 4th, 5th grade at the most, right? She wanted to make sure that her gay relationship was a centerpiece of your kindergartner's entertainment after school, boys and girls. No, God forbid she just makes something wholesome, educational, and morally standing for your kids to enjoy. No, all gotta be about me, and all about my muff diving with my girlfriend. Yay! That's what children's entertainment's supposed to be all about, right, parents?
We were trying to figure out a way to have it be a character that you already loved so much that it just could not be taken out of the fabric of the show itself.
Literally, she knew from the get-go that she wanted to create a character that was a representation of her that was impossible to remove from the story, long before she revealed to the studio executives what her actual intent was behind any of it. No, she made it impossible to remove the character. It was all intentional right from the get-go.
We kept Ruby and Sapphire hidden from the network until 2014, when we finally made Jailbreak.
2014. 3 years after this show was on the air, This is how diabolical this woman is. She had this planned from the get-go to make it impossible. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, pull the rug out from under the network, making it impossible to cancel this even if they had wanted to. Because otherwise, she clearly was creative and talented and could have created a good, wholesome kids show that everybody was going to love. Although honestly, it was probably the team around her that actually pulled that off. But even just giving her that kind of credit, just to be kind and generous in that process, it didn't matter. Her intent from the get-go was to make sure her own personal issues were expressed in a children's cartoon show, boys and girls.
And as expected, we got the note that these characters cannot be in a romantic relationship. I said that they are.
Network knew. Nope, this is not appropriate for children. We don't want to see this kind of nonsense exposed to kids. Well, guess what? I don't care. Fire me. Well, back then, the studio's heads didn't really have the balls to do stuff like that. And especially when a show was as successful as Steven Universe was at the time. And guess what? That was the intent.
They sing a song about it. They're in love. The song's already been recorded.
We already spent your money. It's too late. We already blew your money before we're telling you what we were going to do, because otherwise you would have never given us the money to begin with. We lied our way into this job about our intent and what we wanted to do to these children just so you'd give us money. Too late now. We already spent your money.
We can't take it out. And it also was just right. It was just what the story was about. We got the characters in, and from then on, every episode with Ruby and Sapphire was a big uphill battle, but it was one that I was willing to fight. I would compromise on...
She would compromise on other things. I don't know if the music's going to get us messed with at all or not. It's TikTok. They got all kinds of different rules about stuff like that over there. But, like, literally, this was her hill to die on. Her own personal self-insert was her hill to die on. It was more important for her to expose your children to an adult relationship than it was for her to just give you a good quality story.
Other things, but I would not compromise on Ruby and Sapphire.
That was her hill to die on. That was more important to her than anything else, boys and girls. That was her priority right from the get-go. She admitted it herself. She lied to the studio executives. She hid it from them intentionally. Now, if you're not trying to do something evil and nefarious, if you're not trying to do something that you know will not be accepted by parents and by exposing that to their children, then why would you do it? You knew it was wrong right from the get-go, but that didn't matter because your own personal priorities mattered more to you than children's safety and their psyche. The admission highlights a deeper issue. Steven Universe wasn't just pushing creative boundaries, it was doing so in direct defiance of internal standards for children's television. Cartoon Network's initial restrictions were not arbitrary. At the time, the channel served a global market where children's programming was expected to avoid adult themes and ideology. I know, crazy concept. Have kids shows avoid adult themes and ideology. Wild, right? It's almost like children's innocence should be protected, and that's the one thing the devil wants to destroy most of all. Weird, weird, weird. Sugar's comments confirmed that Network's oversight was intentionally sidestepped. In her own words, she refused to compromise, embedding her personal messages secretly in a series marketed to kids. That revelation raises ethical questions about creators using corporate platforms to push social narratives that parents were never told to expect. That's what it's always been about. That's the only reason they ever got any of these positions and ever wanted control of any of these IPs. The only reason they ever wanted control of your children's entertainment was to push their abnormal, freakish ideas and make it culturally acceptable to a new generation so they could feel special and loved and not judged how they properly deserve. These are people intentionally targeting children because of their own personal issues and their own personal gripes. That's disturbing. That's sickening. For many parents, Steven Universe was billed as a harmless adventure about friendship, family, and kindness. It carried a PG rating, which typically means the target audience is children around 7 to 14 years old. Still way too young for this nonsense. though Cartoon Network traditionally targeted the 6 to 11 age group heavily, which means Steven Universe was coming on right before or right after something meant for kindergartners. Really? Were parents out there changing the channel? Or the kids? Nope, didn't think so. And trust me, they knew that. Few were aware of the behind-the-scenes struggles over sexual identity themes, or that the show's creator openly defied her employer to make sure those messages remained intact and appeared before kids. Even supporters of the show have to acknowledge that this represents a form of creative manipulation. The network said no, but the content went in anyway. Sugar now describes the resistance with pride, while the critics see it as a breach of trust between animation studios and families. Hollywood has increasingly blurred the lines between adult activism and children's storytelling. What makes Sugar Confessions so striking is in her candor. She wasn't forced into including Ruby and Sapphire's relationship by executives. She hid it from them to ensure that no one could remove it later. She lied with nefarious intent to her bosses. In any other world out there, in any other industry out there, that would get you fired as soon as they found out about that. But not in Hollywood, because of course, toxic positivity reigns supreme, boys and girls. Steven Universe went on to receive praise from LGBT activist organizations and media awards for its inclusion of same-sex and non-binary characters. But the recognition didn't erase how it got there, through deception, not transparency. It's almost like if they were honest and upfront about their intentions from the get-go, nobody would ever let them in the door. I guarantee you, if you had told any sane person in charge of DC Studios that your next Superman run was going to imply that Clark took a kryptonite rod up the rear end, they would have told you to get out and lose their number and never speak to them ever again. But that's not what they tell you. They lie to your face and then shove their propaganda right down your children's throats before anybody even realizes what happens. Fortunately enough, one of the beautiful things that did come down from the government lockdowns in 2020 is parents were very well made much more aware of what their schools were doing to indoctrinate children into this exact same kind of ideology that Steven Universe was trying to do. And now they're hyper aware of all of it, because guess what? This stuff would not fly nowadays. That's how much things have changed. Parents trusted Cartoon Network to deliver entertainment suitable for younger audiences. Instead, its own creator now admits that the boundaries were crossed intentionally and proudly. Because of course they're proud of it. After all, Pride's the OG one, right? Pride before the fall. Lucifer's main problem out there. Simply couldn't live and serve his purpose. Instead, he had to be prideful and think he knew better than God. Well, guess what? Sugar thought she knew better than parents. She thought your children should be exposed to her own personal issues and her own ideology, and lied to her own bosses. Now, I don't know about you, but maybe you're okay with this, right? Maybe you're okay with this kind of stuff being exposed to your kindergarten children. You're probably the same kind of person that's perfectly okay with taking them to drag time story hour at the local library. But at the end of the day, I digress and hope maybe there's a few of you out there who aren't completely and totally insane with this kind of stuff. Tell me how it is fair that these people intentionally got to push their propaganda by lying to their bosses, to the people who pay their checks. In what world do you live in at your job could you get away with doing that and not be fired on the spot? Hollywood is allowed to do that. And guess what? It was intentional from the get-go. Steven Universe was never meant to be a wholesome, family-friendly children's show. The writer, the creator, admits from the get-go that it was nothing more than a vehicle for her to push her own personal relationship into children's entertainment and put it right in the front of your kids. Why? Because she craves the acceptance from children that she cannot get from adults. Children are an easy target because they naturally just want to love and be kind to everyone for the most part. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what they prey on. The innocence and the kindness of children. And this sick, twisted psychopath did exactly that. And now they're admitting it because they're proud of it. And boys and girls, pride always becomes before the fall, because now everybody knows exactly what Steven Universe was all about from the get-go. And who was responsible for that? Sugar, you danced with the devil in the pale moonlight. You believed all of his lies that it was going to be perfectly okay to expose children to this. And as a result, your entire movement has gotten burned for it. There's been a divide among the LGBT community because of your indoctrination of children. And guess what? That ostracization, that judgment, that scrutiny, I don't know, that shame is exactly what you deserve. And trust me, it'll be far worse when you get the pineapple. But at the end of the day, you did it to yourself. Lord be with them. A big shout out to all of our subscribers and members out there. Thanks for watching, and make sure you guys like and subscribe if you have not already.